Woodward and Eugene Bateman for their remarks, and now I'd be pleased to answer questions from the press.
I'll ask. So this is obviously the first press conference you've held since winning the primary, but it's also the first press conference you've held since the divorce records came out and since you've addressed those. As you've now had some time to reflect on that whole episode, do you have any regrets about the way that you've handled things and any more thoughts that you would offer to voters who may still be, reflecting on what they've learned about that?
Well, I think that this episode has made us actually stronger, our campaign stronger. It certainly made our family stronger. I mean, it shows how we face adversity. It shows how we face up to the truth, how we own the truth, how we don't back away, how we don't hide. I think that this particular event is something that has strengthened our campaign, and you've seen now our campaign staff. Some of them were with us before this, and they're with us again, and we are strong, and we're not looking back. We're looking forward. We're going to win this in November.
May I respond to that?
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Let me just say for the record, aside from being a legislator for 26 years, my real job, as I like to say, is as a social worker. In Orangeburg County, I operate along with a lot of men and women, an agency that serves battered women, children who have been sexually and physically abused, as well as the community education, sexual assault, and all of that. And what I think is important when we talk about the incident that you referred to, context matters. What I have been so pleased about, there are two things. First and foremost, in the work that I've done for almost 40 years, one of the things we like to share and talk about with people who are victims of domestic violence as well as perpetrators is the need to get help and the need to get treatment if the issue is to be resolved. What I appreciate about this situation is first and foremost, and this is a context for me, it happened one time. There is a difference in the work I do in a pattern and an isolated incident. And what am I talking about? My point is this: what I've seen in almost 40 years of doing this is that it's real clear when you have someone who has demonstrated a pattern of violence and abuse over years and years, have a history, kind of known for in the community and elsewhere as being an abuser, that to me is different from someone who does this one time in a fit of rage. So that's the first point. The second point, and the one that has to be emphasized here, is that Archie Parnell is a better man as a result of the incident, in my view, as a result of that incident from 45 years ago, because he sought help. Now, I would close this by saying most of the people I've talked to over here in the 5th District are saying to me, Gilda, why are they focusing on something that happened one time, but they are not looking at what he's trying to bring to the district? Gilda, I want the media to stop asking him about an incident from 45 years ago that doesn't create a pattern here. What I want them to ask him about is, what does he plan to do about me being able to take my babies to the doctor and not have to worry about it? What I want the media to ask him about is education. What are we going to do at the federal level? Are we going to have Ralph Norman going back and agreeing with Mick Mulvaney's proposal to merge the Department of Education and Department of Labor? I mean, my point is simply this. As someone who has spent 40 years in the field of domestic violence, I would not be standing here. I would not be wholeheartedly supporting Archie Parnell for Congress if I thought he had a problem with abuse. What I do feel very comfortable in standing here and any place else in this district and in this state saying is that Archie Parnell committed an offense one time, 45 years ago. He has dealt with it. His first wife has dealt with it. His current wife has said she spent 40 years with him and he has never raised a hand or his voice to her. So for me, that kind of settles the issue, and I would suggest to the media that you focus on what voters in this district want to talk about. That is Congressman Norman's record and what Archie Parnell tends to do differently. I just wanted to say that because I think probably out of everybody standing out here, the issue of domestic violence is one that I know extremely well, and because I do, it is extremely disappointing to see media keep referring in stories I've seen to him as a wife beater. And my final point, and I'm talking too much because my mouth getting dry, so y'all should be glad. My final point on this is I have just been so amazed at the selective, shall we say, outrage that has been demonstrated in some circles over this incident. One of the things as Democrats that we have got to stop doing is being selective in our outrage. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Representative Cobb-Hunter. I just want to reiterate one point that Representative Cobb-Hunter said, and that is we should use this campaign as an opportunity to make the point that anyone who has a problem, and we all have different problems, but if it's a problem, you can get help. You can seek help. When you take the step of getting help, you can be better. I sought help. Everyone has the capability of being better, and together we can be better as a society. So I wanted to thank Representative Cobb-Hunter for her comments, and I could not agree with her more.
In light of all that, I understand that you, Ms. Cobb-Hunter, and several other folks, county chairs, folks have been talking to the state party about why, asking questions about why they made the decision they did. Obviously, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee also left the district, and the party leaders seemed to abandon the race. Would you like to see them reconsider that decision at this point, in light of the explanations you've made?
Well, I mean, I am not running to impress the Democratic National Committee. I'm not running to impress the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. I'm running for the voters of the 5th Congressional District. I'm running to try to address their problems and help them, and help us all. I do recall that Ralph Norman called me at the end of the special election Pelosi's boy. Well, I think for myself, and I'm not Pelosi's boy, and he can't say that anymore.
And if I could also just ask, the major part of the reason why a lot of those folks said that they wanted you to drop out or decided to leave the district was bigger than the district, right? It was about concerns about the impact it would have for the party more broadly, for other candidates on the ticket that will be right next to you on the ballot. And this is obviously a party that has relied heavily on female voters. It's worked aggressively to recruit female candidates to run for office. And in talking to folks in the days afterwards, that seemed to be a big part of their concern. Did that ever cross your mind when you decided you wanted to stay in, the impact it would have on the broader Democratic Party outside even of the 5th District?
Well, I think that my candidacy will prove to people that my inclusion actually strengthens the party strengthens candidates on the ticket. It shows that people that are strong, that confront issues truthfully, not hide from them. Actually, that's something that people are looking for, and that's something that is going to benefit not only our campaign when we win in November, but also those Democrats that are on the ticket with me. So we're strengthening this by staying here.
May I respond
Yeah,
as well?
sure.
Let me respond to that, if I may, as the former Democratic leader of the South Carolina House, one who has spent over 20 years recruiting candidates, and one who stands before you very proudly this year to let you know that we were successful, the House Democratic Caucus, in recruiting a number of women to run for office. What I am comfortable in saying is that the conversations that I've had with all of those women candidates, as well as some of the other candidates who are on the ballot statewide, is that they don't see Archie Parnell as a barrier to their success. What I would remind you all is that if we are going to start talking about the Democratic Party leadership, whether that is at the state or federal level, I would encourage you to show me the last time anybody from any of those sectors won a race here in South Carolina. My point is simply this: with all due respect to the DCCC, the DNC, the Democratic Party of South Carolina, we've got to do this in spite of Democratic Party leadership at any level. Here's the point that the voters in the 5th Congressional District understand. We aren't caught up with titles. What we are caught up with are men and women who recognize that we have learned the lesson from 2016 when we listened to party leaders, when we listened to folk from inside the Beltway telling us how to run races. And you know what happened? We lost. And so here in the 5th Congressional District and the Parnell campaign, it would be nice to have the resources of the DCCC, but guess what? We're going to do this in spite of. And quite frankly, I think the campaign may feel a sense of relief, because now, rather than continuing to jump through the necessary hoops needed to secure that kind of support, they can focus on retail politics, not on what some poll-tested message ought to be. Archie Parnell and his team have demonstrated that they are focused on this district, and what they are interested in is not what the state Democratic Party says, the congressional Democratic committees, or the national committee. Because when you look at the track record of those entities, there are not many victories that we can point to. So the campaign is figuring, you know what? We're going to go and do what we know needs to be done. And when we win and they want to come on board, we're going to welcome them with open arms, because after all, it's all about doing for the least of these. And out of the political parties, with all of its faults and dysfunction, the Democratic Party is still the party that cares most for the least of these.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Parnell, I actually have the opportunity to work with a lot of working women who are not politically connected. They work regular jobs and they don't have high wages, and they can't get off to attend events like this or different political functions, and they don't really know and understand even the legislative process as well as some of us here might. What we'd like to know, and I'd like to share with my constituency, is how will you support working women? How will you ensure that they have livable wages? And what will you do to help make sure that this group, this demographic remains connected